What if I told you that an alien didn't just crash in the desert? He came to reveal what the church has been hiding about Jesus for 2,000 years. An electrician named Aaron was about to lose everything when a gray appeared in the sand, dying, and whispered, "I need to show you what you forgot about the Christ." I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the vibrational technology Jesus actually used to heal, the same frequency this extraterrestrial being operates on. Something was removed from the scriptures centuries ago, and what this visitor showed Aaron will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine power. Once you see this, there's no going back to comfortable Sunday sermons. This will unlock the electromagnetic truth behind miracles, but it might cost you your religious certainty. If you're ready to see what happens when ancient wisdom meets interstellar revelation, subscribe and hit that bell. Because what happened to Aaron in that glowing ship will prove that God's presence isn't where they told you to look. It's inside a frequency you've forgotten how to feel. Now let me tell you how a broken man fixed an alien spacecraft and discovered he was repairing his own soul. Aaron McKinley was 44 years old, electrician, divorced, living alone in Pine Ridge, New Mexico. December 2017, late evening, the kind of night that feels like it'll never end. He drove down Highway 180, checking a power outage that had knocked out service to 3 ranch houses north of town. Alone, like always. The dry wind cut across the desert like an invisible blade, pushing tumbleweeds across the cracked asphalt. His truck rattled. The radio hissed static. Aaron didn't bother changing the station. The noise was better than silence, better than thinking, because when he thought, he remembered the divorce papers, signed 3 months ago, the empty house waiting back in Pine Ridge, the way Sarah had looked at him that last morning, not with anger, but something worse, disappointment. Like she'd finally accepted he'd never be the man she hoped he'd become. Maybe she was right. Aaron's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart carried the weight of recent failure like a stone in his chest. The routine had become his religion. Silence, dust, broken cables. Drive out. Fix what's broken. Drive back. Sleep. Repeat. Nothing in his life reminded him of purpose anymore. Nothing reminded him of hope. He used to pray, back when he believed God listened. Back when he thought his marriage could be saved if he just asked hard enough, begged loud enough, promised enough. But God had gone silent, and Aaron had stopped asking. The sky stretched above him, vast and empty as his tired soul. Stars flickered weakly through the desert haze, distant and cold, just like everything else. Aaron checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. He'd be home by 11 if the repair was simple. Microwave dinner, beer, bed. Wake up tomorrow and do it all again. A life. Not much of one, but a life. And then, without warning, everything changed. A white flash tore across the firmament. Not lightning. Too fast. Too focused. Aaron's breath caught. The light fell behind the hills like a dying star, bright enough to turn night into day for 3 full seconds. The desert lit up, every cactus, every rock, every grain of sand suddenly visible. Then darkness again, but different now. Charged. The ground vibrated beneath the truck's old wheels. A low rumble rolled through the earth like distant thunder, except it came from below, not above. Aaron's foot hit the brake. The truck skidded, tires crunching on gravel. His heart hammered against his ribs. What the hell was that? Meteor? Plane crash? Military test gone wrong? He sat there, engine idling, hands shaking slightly on the wheel. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around. Go home. Call someone. Let someone else deal with whatever just happened. Not your problem, Aaron. Not your responsibility. But he hesitated, divided between fear and something else. Something he hadn't felt in months. Duty. Not to his job. Not to the power company. To something deeper. Someone might be hurt. Aaron closed his eyes, took a breath, made a decision. He turned the wheel and followed the direction of the impact. The truck bounced over rough terrain as he left the highway, following a dirt path that wound between the hills. The radio crackled and hissed, unable to catch any signal now. Just white noise, static, the sound of emptiness. As he drove deeper into the desert, Aaron felt something strange. A presence, silent but undeniable, like being watched, but not threatened, just observed. The hair on his arms stood up. He almost turned back 3 times. But he didn't, because part of him, the part that used to believe in miracles, in purpose, In something bigger than broken cables and empty houses, that part whispered, "Keep going. This matters. You're supposed to be here." The night opened before him like a door he'd been walking toward his entire life without knowing it. And Aaron McKinley, 44-year-old electrician who'd stopped believing God answered prayers, drove straight toward the impossible. The hills rose around him. The stars watched. The desert held its breath. And somewhere ahead, in a clearing marked by impact and light, something waited. Something that would show him he'd never been as broken as he thought. Something that would prove God had been listening all along, just waiting for Aaron to be ready to hear. The clearing was perfectly circular. Aaron stopped the truck 50 feet away, engine still running, headlights cutting through the darkness. Marks in the sand. Not footprints. Something deeper. Geometric. Deliberate. In the center, a structure. Metallic. Angular. But somehow organic. It breathed golden light. Not reflecting. Not glowing. Pulsing. Like a wounded heart. Aaron sat frozen behind the wheel, his rational mind scrambling for explanations that wouldn't come. Military craft. Experimental drone. Secret government project. But even as he thought it, he knew. None of those things pulsed like something alive. He killed the engine. The silence crashed over him like a wave. No wind now, no crickets, no distant highway hum, just the pulse of golden light, and his own ragged breathing. Aaron grabbed his flashlight, opened the door. The cool desert air hit his face. Every cell in his body screamed at him to get back in the truck and leave, but his feet moved forward. One step, then another. The sand crunched beneath his boots. As he got closer, he saw details. The craft, because what else could he call it, was damaged. Sections of the hull were scorched. Panels hung loose. Thin wisps of something like steam rose from openings in the structure. And then he saw him, kneeling in the sand beside the craft, trying to stay upright, failing. Aaron's flashlight beam found the figure and his breath stopped. Tall, taller than any human, even kneeling. Skin that looked gray and translucent, almost luminescent in the golden light from the damaged craft. No hair, head slightly larger than proportion would suggest, and eyes, black, completely black, shining like polished stone, not threatening, aware. Aaron stumbled backward, the flashlight dropping from his hand. Every rational thought evaporated. This isn't real. This can't be real. I'm having a breakdown. The stress finally broke something in my brain, and I'm hallucinating in the desert, and someone's going to find my truck tomorrow, and... The voice came. Not through his ears. Through his mind. Clear. Gentle. Undeniable. Do not fear. Aaron froze, unable to explain what he was experiencing. The being lifted its head with visible effort, those dark eyes finding him across the sand. I need repair. And understanding. The voice carried no threat. Only exhaustion. Pain. Desperation. Aaron's hands shook. His heart hammered. Every instinct screamed run. But something else rose through the terror. Something he hadn't felt in months. Compassion. This being, whatever it was hurt. Dying, maybe. And despite every logical reason to flee, Aaron recognized the look in those alien eyes. The same look he'd seen in his own mirror every morning since Sarah left. I'm alone. I'm broken. I need help. The golden light from the craft pulsed more desperately now. Erratic. Like a heartbeat struggling to continue. Aaron looked at the damaged hull, saw burned cables, exposed circuitry that didn't look like any technology he'd ever seen but somehow felt familiar. Components that sparked and died, sparked and died. His electrician's brain kicked in before his belief system could catch up. That's a short circuit. Multiple failures in the power distribution system. The energy source is destabilizing because the regulatory components are fried. The being watched him process this, those dark eyes somehow conveying hope. You understand, came the voice in his mind. Aaron didn't answer, couldn't answer, but he took a step forward, then another. His fear remained, coursing through his veins like ice water. But alongside it, something stronger grew. Purpose. For the first time in months, maybe years, Aaron felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. He picked up his flashlight, walked closer to the craft. A symbol caught his eye, carved or maybe grown into the inner metal of the damaged section. A spiral, elegant, mathematical, beautiful. The being gestured weakly toward the exposed components. Without your help, I cannot leave, cannot complete what I came to show. Aaron knelt beside the craft, his hands hovering over alien technology that somehow made intuitive sense. What are you? He whispered, his voice cracking. A traveler, a teacher, like one your people knew long ago. Aaron's brow furrowed. I don't understand. You will, came the gentle response. First, help me repair what is broken. Then I will show you what you forgot about the Christ. The name hit Aaron like a physical blow. Christ, Jesus. What? But the being's energy was fading. The golden light pulsed weaker. Questions could wait. Right now, someone needed help. And Aaron McKinley, 44-year-old divorced electrician who'd stopped believing in miracles, made a choice. He set down his flashlight, reached for his tool bag, and began to repair an alien spacecraft in the New Mexico desert. His hands steady, his heart, for the first time in months, certain. Aaron's hands trembled as he opened his tool bag, not from fear anymore, from something deeper. He knelt there in the sand beside an impossible craft, beside an impossible being, and suddenly remembered the empty house waiting back in Pine Ridge, the silence that lived in every room, the space where Sarah's laughter used to be, the bed that felt too big now, the mornings that tasted like failure. I couldn't even keep my marriage together. The thought hit him like it did every morning, every night, every moment in between when he let his guard down. Aaron had felt like a failure since the divorce. No, before that, since the fight started, since Sarah stopped looking at him like he mattered, since he realized he'd somehow become invisible in his own life. He'd prayed about it. God knows he'd prayed, begged on his knees in the garage where Sarah wouldn't hear him break down, bargained, promised to be better, do better, be better. But the prayers hit the ceiling and fell back down like dead birds. God had given up on him. That's what it felt like. So Aaron had stopped praying, stopped going to church, stopped pretending he believed anyone was listening. The desert around him reflected perfectly what lived inside. Vast, dry, empty. A landscape where nothing grew, where hope came to die under an indifferent sun. This is what I am now. This is all I'll ever be. But then, kneeling beside this wounded being, something shifted, something opened, like a door he'd forgotten existed. Aaron looked at the gray, at those dark eyes watching him with strange gentleness, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. A calling, not to fix cables, not to earn a paycheck, a calling to matter, to be needed, to serve something larger than his own broken pieces. The being observed him silently, those eyes somehow seeing deeper than flesh, reading him like an open book. You carry ancient pain, came the soft voice in his mind. Aaron's throat tightened. He didn't try to deny it, couldn't deny it. He was completely exposed here, bare, every defense stripped away. Yeah, he whispered. Yeah, I do. The weight of feeling abandoned. Aaron's eyes burned. God stopped listening. No, came the gentle correction. You stopped hearing. The words should have made him angry, should have felt like judgment. Instead, they felt like truth. Aaron wiped his face with the back of his hand. The gray gestured toward an opening in the craft's hull, an invitation. Come, let me show you what needs repair, and perhaps what needs healing. Aaron stood on shaking legs and followed the being toward the interior of the craft. As he stepped through the opening, the temperature changed, warmer. The air felt different, alive somehow. The inside glowed with soft blue light. Aaron's breath caught. It was beautiful, not mechanical, not cold and sterile like he'd imagined alien technology would be. It felt organic, like stepping inside something living. The walls curved gently, patterns that might have been circuitry or might have been veins pulsed with faint luminescence. And there, exposed along the inner hull, burned cables glowed like damaged nerves. The comparison wasn't random. The craft genuinely seemed wounded, hurting. The atmosphere breathed silent compassion around them. No judgment, no condemnation, just acceptance. Aaron felt tears on his face and didn't bother wiping them away. When was the last time he'd felt accepted? The gray moved slowly to a damaged panel, those long fingers pointing to specific components. These require reconnection, stabilization. Your hands understand this work. Aaron approached, examining the damage with professional focus. His mind cataloged the problems automatically: severed connections, blown regulators, destabilized power flow, different technology than he'd ever seen. But the principles felt familiar. Energy needed pathways, needed balance, needed proper distribution, or everything failed. Like life, some part of him thought. Like faith, like love. He found tools in a compartment that opened at the Gray's gesture. Simple instruments, elegant, perfectly weighted. Aaron prepared himself, laying out what he'd need. His hands steady now, focused, purposeful. He didn't know it yet, couldn't have known. But as he prepared to repair this alien craft in the middle of the New Mexico desert, his own soul was preparing to be repaired as well. The blue light pulsed gently. The Gray watched with those knowing eyes. And Aaron McKinley, 44-year-old electrician who thought he'd lost everything that mattered, began the work that would teach him he'd never truly been broken, just disconnected. And connection, real connection, was only a choice away. He reached for the first burned cable, and the healing began. Aaron examined the damaged internal panel with the focused intensity of a man who'd spent 20 years troubleshooting electrical systems. Except nothing about this was familiar. The connections vibrated with energy he couldn't name, didn't understand, couldn't measure with any instrument he'd ever used. Yet somehow, impossibly, he felt it. The flow, the rhythm, the places where the current stuttered and failed. "Do not rely only on your eyes," came the Gray's voice in his mind. "Feel the energy. It responds to intention." "I don't understand," Aaron muttered, his fingers hovering over a junction point. "You do. You simply forgot how." The being moved closer, and suddenly Aaron's mind filled with knowing. Not words, not explanations. Direct understanding flowing from consciousness to consciousness. The craft operated on principles that blended what humans called technology with what they called consciousness. No separation. Energy followed awareness. Structure responded to thought and emotion. "That's impossible," Aaron's rational mind protested, but his hands were already moving. He pulled a burned cable free, examined the crystalline connector at its end. The metal felt alive under his touch. Warm, reactive. The blue light reflected in the sweat forming on Aaron's face as he worked. He adjusted circuits he didn't understand but somehow recognized. Stabilized pulses that his training said shouldn't exist, but his intuition knew exactly how to balance. The Gray watched every movement with serene attention, not supervising, not judging, witnessing. "You understand what is broken," the voice observed. Aaron didn't respond with words, couldn't spare the attention, but part of him registered the statement. "Yeah, I understand broken. I've been broken for months." His fingers worked steadily, reconnecting pathways, restoring flow. Each repair seemed to resonate through the craft's structure, small pulses of light chasing along the walls as systems came back online. Gradually, sections of the craft that had been dark began to glow with renewed harmony. The Gray observed with what Aaron could only describe as sincere admiration. "Your people create with the heart," came the gentle voice. "You do not realize this, but every object you build carries the emotion you felt while building it." Aaron paused, a connection half complete in his hands. "What do you mean?" "When you work in anger, the work becomes unstable. When you work in love, or even simple care, the work becomes stronger, more aligned." This is not metaphor. It is fundamental truth about how consciousness shapes matter. Aaron thought about the sloppy work he'd done in the weeks after Sarah left, the shortcuts, the good enough repairs that he knew would fail within a year. I was angry, bitter, and yeah, that work was shit. He looked at the connections in his hands now. He wasn't angry anymore. He was present, focused. And underneath everything else, he felt something he hadn't felt in so long he'd almost forgotten the sensation. Care. He cared about doing this right, about helping this being, about fixing what was broken. Not for payment, not for recognition, just because it mattered. The realization struck him silent. Something was waking up inside him, something that had been asleep, or maybe dead, for longer than just these past few months. Purpose. Aaron finished the connection he'd been working on. Light flowed through it immediately, smooth and steady. A small hum of energy filled the space around them. "Yes," the Gray said softly. "Like that. You feel the difference?" Aaron nodded slowly. He did feel it. The work he was doing now carried weight, intention, something beyond mere technical competence. "I'm creating something, not just fixing it." He moved to the next damaged section, his movements more confident now. The blue light seemed to pulse in rhythm with his efforts, guiding him step by step. The repair was becoming something else, something sacred, a ritual of silent healing. Aaron pulled another burned cable, examined its connection points, understood without knowing how he understood exactly what needed to happen. His hands moved with certainty. The gray remained nearby, that serene presence somehow making Aaron feel less alone than he'd felt in years. "Your people have forgotten so much," came the voice, "but it lives in you still, in your hands, your heart, the way you instinctively know that attention and intention shape outcomes." "Jesus," Aaron muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Yes," the gray said simply, "exactly like Jesus. He understood this perfectly, taught it constantly." But the words were changed, the meaning buried. Aaron's hands stilled. "What are you talking about?" "Continue your work," the being said gently. "When the craft is stable, I will show you. I will show you what was removed from the teachings, what you forgot about the Christ." Aaron's heart hammered. Questions flooded his mind, but the damaged sections still pulsed with unstable energy, and his hands knew what needed to be done. So he pushed the questions aside and returned to the work, each connection restored, each circuit balanced, each pathway reopened. The craft responding, healing, coming back to life. And deep in Aaron's chest, in a place he'd thought had gone dark forever, something else was healing too, something he didn't have words for yet, but he felt it, growing stronger with every deliberate, careful, loving repair. The blue light embraced him, and Aaron worked on. When the final system stabilized, the craft hummed with restored energy. Aaron sat back on his heels, exhausted but satisfied. Sweat soaked through his shirt. His hands ached, but the work was complete. The blue light pulsed steady and strong now, harmonious. "I did it." The gray approached slowly, those dark eyes holding something Aaron could only describe as gratitude mixed with purpose. "Now," came the voice, "now I must show you what you forgot." "Forgot?" Aaron wiped his face. "I don't understand." "You will." The gray raised one long hand, and the room transformed. The blue light shifted, warming into soft golden radiance that filled every corner of the craft's interior. Not harsh, not blinding, gentle, like sunrise breaking over the desert. Aaron's breath caught. Images began to form in the air before him, not on a screen, not projected onto a surface. In the air itself, three-dimensional, living, moving, like memories made visible. And then Aaron saw him. A figure materialized in the golden light, human form, but radiating something that went beyond human. Peace, love, presence. Jesus, not the suffering Christ from the crucifix, not the distant deity from stained glass windows. Jesus alive, walking, teaching, being. Aaron fell to his knees, his chest seized with emotion so profound he couldn't breathe. Tears came instantly, uncontrollably. "Oh God," he choked out. "Oh my God." The figure in the vision radiated calm that Aaron could feel like physical warmth, love that pressed against his skin, human dignity that somehow contained divinity without contradiction. This is real. This is who he actually was. He did not come to found religion, the gray said gently. Aaron couldn't look away from the vision. Jesus moved among people, touching them, speaking with them, laughing with them. Human, completely human. And yet, he came to awaken the consciousness of love. The scene shifted. Jesus standing before a blind man, placing hands on clouded eyes, but not doing anything miraculous in the supernatural sense. Instead, Aaron watched something else happen. Jesus felt something, intensely, completely. Love, certainty, absolute knowing that healing was already done. Not hope, not prayer in the begging sense. Certainty, and the blind man's eyes cleared. The vision zoomed closer, showing details Aaron somehow understood without explanation. Energy patterns, frequency shifts. The way Jesus's absolute certainty created a field that reorganized the man's cellular structure. Emotions are frequencies, the gray explained. Thoughts shape reality. This is not metaphor. This is physics you have forgotten. Aaron watched another scene unfold. Jesus with a woman who'd been bleeding for years. She touched his robe. He felt the shift immediately, not because of magic, but because her faith created an energetic alignment that his presence amplified. "Your faith has healed you," Jesus said in the vision. "Not I healed you. Your faith." The power was already in her. Jesus just helped her access it. He taught this constantly, the gray continued, but the words were changed, the meaning buried. What remained was religion of dependency instead of awakening. Aaron watched Jesus heal a paralyzed man, not through divine intervention from an external God, through activation of the divine power already within the man, through raising his vibration, his emotional frequency, to a level where healing became inevitable. Jesus elevated vibrations, not dogmas. The words hit Aaron like physical force. Everything he'd been taught about Jesus, the Savior you begged, the deity you supplicated, the distant God you hoped would intervene if you prayed hard enough, it was incomplete. No, more than incomplete. Reversed. Jesus hadn't come to make people dependent on external salvation. He'd come to show them they carried divine power within themselves. The kingdom of God is within you. Aaron had heard that verse 1,000 times, never understood it, until now. The visions continued, each one revealing the same truth from different angles. Jesus teaching that love wasn't just emotion, it was force, creative power, the fundamental energy that organized matter and consciousness. Jesus demonstrating that thought sustained long enough and felt deeply enough became reality. Jesus showing that every person carried this same capacity. "You will do greater things than these," he'd said, not because he was special and they weren't, because he was showing them what was possible when a human being fully awakened to their nature. Aaron sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place he'd kept locked for years. Everything made sense now. The silence he'd felt when he prayed, that wasn't God abandoning him. That was Aaron praying from fear and lack, which only created more fear and lack. The way his life fell apart, that wasn't punishment. That was the natural result of sustained negative emotion creating negative reality. Jesus hadn't taught people to beg. He'd taught them to know, to embody, to become, to align with love so completely that miracles became inevitable. He elevated through feeling, the gray said softly, through compassion, through certainty, through love that knew no separation between self and other. The golden light intensified. Aaron watched Jesus embrace a leper, saw the disease dissolve not through supernatural magic, but through the vibrational shift that happened when absolute love met absolute certainty. "This is what I forgot. This is what we all forgot." Aaron cried like he hadn't been able to cry in months, years maybe, not from sadness, from recognition, from finally understanding why he'd felt so broken. He'd been trying to access external salvation when the power lived inside him all along. He'd been begging God to fix his life when God was waiting for him to remember how to create it. Jesus hadn't come to be worshipped. He'd come to be followed, not as master and servant, as teacher and student. "I am the way," he'd said. Not the destination, the way, the method, the example. The truth resonated beyond words, beyond intellectual understanding. Aaron felt it in his bones, in his blood, in the deepest part of himself that had always known but never been shown. The golden light held him. The visions continued. And Aaron McKinley, divorced electrician who'd thought God abandoned him, finally understood. God had been there all along, inside him, waiting. The golden light shifted again. The images of Jesus faded, not disappearing, but expanding. The craft's interior seemed to dissolve, and suddenly Aaron floated in space itself. No, not space. Creation. The gray's presence remained beside him, steady and calm as Aaron's perspective exploded outward. Stars, galaxies, systems spinning in cosmic dance, but not empty, not dead, alive. Aaron gasped as the vision zoomed toward a distant star system. A planet appeared, blue and green like Earth, but different. Continents he didn't recognize, oceans that swirled with unfamiliar patterns, and beings, living there, evolving there, not human, but conscious, aware, growing. The Creator inhabits all things. The gray's voice echoed in his expanding awareness. Another system, another world. Beings of light moving through crystalline structures, communicating through color and frequency instead of words. Also evolving, also learning, also discovering what Aaron was discovering right now. The galaxy itself began to glow. not with reflected light from stars, with intention, with consciousness. The entire spiral arm pulsed like a living body, like neurons firing in a vast cosmic brain. The galaxy is alive. No, bigger than that. The galaxy was God, or part of God, an expression of God. God experiencing itself through infinite forms across infinite worlds. You are not alone in the universe, the Gray said gently. Aaron wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Of course I'm not alone. How did I ever think I was? The vision shifted again, zooming back to Earth, to the Middle East, to Jesus walking among people 2,000 years ago. But now Aaron saw him differently, not as anomaly, not as unique savior, unlike any other, as representative. Jesus was a universal messenger, the Gray explained, one of many sent throughout your history, throughout many worlds' histories. Aaron watched as the vision overlaid images, Jesus in Jerusalem, Buddha under the Bodhi tree, other figures Aaron didn't recognize teaching in lands and times he couldn't identify, all carrying the same essential message. You are divine. Wake up. Remember. He showed what each being can accomplish through love. The vision focused back on Jesus, teaching, healing, demonstrating. But now Aaron saw humanity around him, asleep, walking through life unconscious, operating from fear and survival instead of love and creation. We're a species that forgot what we are. Yes, came the gentle confirmation, but forgetting is not permanent. You can remember. You are remembering. The vision expanded again, humanity spreading across Earth, building civilizations, creating technology, art, music, philosophy, all of it, even the wars, even the suffering, part of the learning process, part of consciousness exploring itself through limitation so it could discover what transcendence meant. God is not separate from you, the Gray said. God is a living field within each being, within every atom, every thought, every moment. Aaron felt his mind stretching to accommodate concepts his previous worldview couldn't contain. God wasn't a bearded man in the sky judging humanity. God was the field itself, the conscious intelligence that inhabited everything. That was everything. And humans, every human, were localized expressions of that infinite consciousness, temporary, limited, but fundamentally made of the same essence. Miracles are harmony between intention and compassion, the Gray continued. When these align completely, reality reorganizes itself. This is natural law, not supernatural exception. The light around Aaron intensified as understanding deepened. Jesus performed miracles not by appealing to external God, but by being so aligned with the divine field within himself that his intention directly shaped physical reality. And he'd tried to teach everyone else to do the same. You will do greater things than these, because you're made of the same essence I am, because there's no separation, because you're already God experiencing yourself as human. You just forgot. Aaron's fear began to dissolve, not the fear of the impossible craft or the Gray, the deeper fear, the fear that he was fundamentally broken, unworthy, abandoned. None of that was ever true. He'd just been disconnected from his own source, cut off from the field of love and creation that he'd always been part of. The Gray reached out and touched Aaron's shoulder with profound gentleness. The contact sent warmth through Aaron's entire body. You can awaken too, came the voice. That is why I came to you, not by accident, by design. Your vibration called for answers. I came to provide them. Aaron's reality expanded like horizon at dawn. Everything he'd believed about God, Jesus, prayer, reality itself, not wrong, just incomplete, the missing pieces falling into place. He'd spent months thinking God abandoned him, but God, the conscious field, the divine essence, had never left. Aaron had just stopped feeling the connection. And now, kneeling in an alien craft in the New Mexico desert, that connection blazed to life again, different than before, deeper, more real, more his. Not religion he'd been taught, truth he'd remembered. The vision slowly faded. The craft's blue-gold light remained, gentle and steady. Aaron knelt there, tears still wet on his face, breathing like he'd just been born. The Gray watched him with those dark, knowing eyes. Now you understand, came the soft voice. Now we can complete what we began. Aaron nodded, unable to speak, but understanding perfectly. The repair wasn't finished yet. The gray settled beside Aaron in the gentle blue-gold light. The visions had faded, but their impact remained alive in Aaron's chest, burning in his awareness. "Now we must speak of emotions," the being said softly. Aaron wiped his face, still catching his breath. "What about them?" "Everything about them. Your people misunderstand their nature completely. You think emotions are reactions, byproducts, things that happen to you." The gray's dark eyes held steady compassion. "But emotions are the creative force itself. What you feel creates what you live." The words landed heavy. Aaron thought about the past year, the anger, the bitterness, the crushing sense of failure that followed him like a shadow, and how his life had spiraled exactly in alignment with those feelings. I spent so long feeling guilty," Aaron heard himself say. "After Sarah left, blaming myself, punishing myself. Yes, I feel this in your field. Years of it." The gray gestured and images appeared again. Not grand cosmic visions this time. Aaron's own memories, the fights with Sarah, coming home late, exhausted, disconnected, the way he'd stopped really seeing her years before she left, the slow erosion of intimacy into routine, routine into resentment, and underneath all of it, his constant internal voice. "I'm not good enough. I'm failing. I'm not the man she needs. I'm not the man anyone needs." Over and over, for years. "This shaped your reality," the gray said gently. "Not as punishment, as natural law. You broadcast a frequency of unworthiness, and reality reflected it back to you." Aaron felt the words like a blade. "So it was my fault?" "No." The firmness in the telepathic voice surprised him. "Fault implies moral failure. This is not morality. This is mechanics. You did not know how this worked." "How could you be at fault for not knowing what was never taught?" The heavy memories shifted in Aaron's awareness, gaining new context, new light. He'd believed he was broken, defective, fundamentally flawed. But what if he'd just been running faulty programming, operating from beliefs about himself that created self-fulfilling prophecies? "Forgiveness is not forgetting," the gray said. "It is releasing, letting go of the energetic weight so you can move freely again." Something in Aaron's chest shifted, an ancient weight he'd carried so long he'd stopped noticing it. It began to lift, not all at once, but enough that he could breathe differently. "I blame myself for everything," he whispered. "I know." And that blame became a filter through which you experienced life. Everything confirmed your unworthiness because you were looking for confirmation. The gray raised a hand and new images formed. Molecular structures, energy patterns, fields of light responding to intention. Love reorganizes energy at the fundamental level, the being explained. It is not sentiment. It is the organizing principle of consciousness itself. Aaron watched as the patterns shifted, chaotic formations becoming ordered when exposed to what the gray called coherent emotional fields. Love, gratitude, compassion, peace. Each created specific geometric patterns in the energy fields. Fear, anger, shame, guilt. These created fragmentation, disorder, dissonance. Jesus appeared in the vision again, placing hands on a woman bent double with illness. But the healing didn't happen through words or ritual. It happened through Jesus's absolute emotional coherence. Love so complete it had no doubt, no fear, no separation. And that coherence field reorganized the woman's cellular structure. The disease pattern couldn't maintain itself in the presence of such perfect alignment. The Christ activated the light within each person, the gray said. He did not give them something they lacked. He reminded them of what they already were. Aaron saw his own heart in the vision now, actually saw it, glowing, pulsing, surrounded by an electromagnetic field that extended far beyond his physical body. And that field, his heart's field, was responding to his emotions in real time. When he felt gratitude in the vision, the field expanded, brightened, became coherent. When he felt shame, it contracted, dimmed, fragmented. My heart is doing this all the time, creating a field that shapes my experience of reality. Yes, came the confirmation, and you can choose what you broadcast. This is the power Jesus taught. This is what you forgot. Aaron felt tears again, but different now. Not grief, not shame, recognition. You did not lose your faith, the gray said gently. You only moved away from it, and moving away is temporary. You can return. The The clarity hit Aaron like hot desert wind, sharp, undeniable, cutting through years of confusion. He hadn't lost God. He'd lost his connection to God, to the divine field, to his own heart's creative power, and he'd lost it by sustaining emotions of separation, unworthiness, fear. But he could choose differently. Right now, this moment, Aaron looked at his hands, saw them with new eyes. These hands had repaired the craft, had created harmony from damage, not through his training alone, through his care, his attention, his intention to help, through love, even if he hadn't named it that. And if he could do that with alien technology, what could he do with his own life? The Gray watched him process this, those dark eyes full of patient knowing. Aaron felt something unlock in his chest. The healing was beginning, not in his circumstances, not in his bank account or his empty house, in the center of his being, where it had always needed to start. He recognized himself for the first time in years, not as failure, not as abandoned, as someone who'd simply forgotten how to operate his own consciousness, and was now remembering. The blue-gold light pulsed warmly. Aaron's heart pulsed in rhythm with it, and the repair of craft and soul continued. Aaron sat in silence for a long moment. The Gray waited, patient, giving him space to integrate. Finally, Aaron sent his thoughts directly to the being, tentative, uncertain how this telepathy actually worked, but trying anyway. I feel like I failed at everything that mattered. The confession came from the deepest place, the wound he'd never shown anyone. The Gray's response carried waves of serene compassion. The Creator does not abandon. You are the one who closes yourself off. Aaron wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but the words rang too true. God hadn't gone silent. Aaron had stopped listening, stopped feeling, built walls of shame and bitterness so thick no light could penetrate. I did this to myself. And with that realization, something unexpected happened. The guilt that had lived in his chest for months, maybe years, dissolved. Like sand caught in desert wind, there one moment, gone the next. Not through effort, not through positive thinking or forced forgiveness, through simple seeing. He wasn't a bad person who'd failed God. He was a disconnected person who'd forgotten how consciousness worked, and disconnection could be healed. Your pain came from internal separation, the Gray said, not from external circumstances. The divorce was effect, not cause. Aaron felt the truth of it. He'd been disconnected from himself, from Sarah, from God, long before she packed her bags. The marriage ending was just the visible manifestation of an internal reality he'd been creating for years. The Gray gestured, and holographic patterns filled the air. Aaron's life, but not in images, in vibrations, wave patterns, frequencies, energy signatures mapped across time. And Aaron could see it. The years of fear creating financial scarcity. Not because money was actually scarce, but because his fearful vibration closed him off from opportunities. The months of resentment creating relationship breakdown. Not because Sarah was wrong or he was wrong, but because resentment literally makes connection impossible. The sustained shame creating isolation. Because shame broadcasts "I'm unworthy" so loudly that love can't get through. Fear generates scarcity. Love generates pathway. The pattern was undeniable. You see now? The Gray asked gently. I see, Aaron whispered aloud. He saw his past choices with completely new eyes, not as moral failures, as vibrational misalignments. He'd been creating his reality all along, just unconsciously, based on faulty programming about who he was and what he deserved. Now we practice, the Gray said. The being moved closer, placing one long hand near Aaron's chest without quite touching. I will guide you in an exercise of conscious intention. Aaron nodded, not knowing what to expect. Feel into your heart, not your physical heart, the energetic center, the field. Aaron closed his eyes, brought awareness to his chest. At first, nothing, just the normal sensation of breathing. But as he stayed with it, something else emerged. Warmth, subtle pulsing, a presence he'd never noticed before. Good. Now think of something you are grateful for. Anything genuine. Feel the gratitude as deeply as you can. Aaron thought of the craft, of being needed, of mattering again, even just for one night. Gratitude swelled in his chest, and the warmth expanded, tangibly, like someone had lit a small fire behind his sternum. You feel that? That is your field activating. Coherence beginning. Aaron's eyes snapped open in wonder. I feel it. This is prayer. Real prayer. Not begging, not pleading. Gratitude, alignment. Knowing you are already connected to the source of all things. Aaron sat with the sensation. Let it build. For the first time in months, maybe ever, he wasn't asking God for something. He was thanking God for this moment, this impossible night, this chance to remember. The craft around them responded. Light flowed more brightly through the repaired systems. The hum of restored energy harmonized into something almost musical. The technology responds to consciousness, the Gray explained. It was designed to. Your gratitude is literally stabilizing the remaining systems. Aaron laughed. Couldn't help it. He was healing an alien spacecraft with gratitude. The absurdity and beauty of it overwhelmed him. But beyond the craft, something else was happening. The connection between him and the Gray felt different now. Not just technical collaboration, spiritual recognition. Two conscious beings acknowledging the divine field they both emerged from. You begin to accept your own light, the Gray observed. Aaron felt it. The acceptance. He wasn't broken, wasn't defective, wasn't abandoned. He was a consciousness learning to operate itself properly, and that learning had just taken a quantum leap. He looked out through the craft's opening at the desert beyond. Even in darkness, it looked different now. Not dry, not dead, alive, waiting, full of potential. Like him, Aaron took a deep breath, felt his heart's field pulse steady and strong, and smiled. The weight was lifting. The release was happening. And for the first time since Sarah left, maybe for the first time in his entire life, Aaron McKinley felt free. The Gray moved toward the craft's central chamber. Aaron followed, still feeling the warmth in his chest from the gratitude exercise. His heart's field pulsing steady, strong, different than an hour ago, different than he'd felt in years. They reached the core, a crystalline structure suspended in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the geometric patterns Aaron had repaired earlier. It glowed faintly, but the light flickered, unstable. This is the last piece, the Gray said, the central alignment. Without it, the craft cannot sustain flight. Aaron examined the crystal. Beautiful, multifaceted, pulsing with energy that seemed almost conscious. What do you need me to do? This repair is different, not technical, energetic. The being gestured to the crystal. Place your hand upon the core. Aaron hesitated. Will it hurt? No, but it will change you. The Gray's dark eyes held his. Everything you have learned tonight will become permanent, integrated. You will not be able to forget this, even if part of you wants to. Aaron looked at his hand, calloused, scarred from years of electrical work. This hand had built things, fixed things, created with physical tools. Now it was being asked to create with something else, with consciousness itself. He stepped forward, reached out, placed his palm flat against the crystal's surface. The effect was immediate. A wave of heat surged through his chest, not burning, not painful, alive, like liquid light flowing through his veins, through his heart, through every cell. Aaron gasped. He felt love, not as emotion, not as sentiment, as force, as fundamental power, as the organizing principle of reality itself. The crystal responded to his touch. The flickering stabilized. The glow intensified. Energy flowed through the core in perfect rhythm, perfect balance, perfect harmony. The vibration synchronized with Aaron's heartbeat, or maybe Aaron's heartbeat synchronized with it. He couldn't tell anymore, couldn't tell where he ended and the crystal began, where his consciousness stopped and the craft's energy started. We're connected, all of it, all connected. The entire craft illuminated like golden dawn breaking. Light flowed through every repaired pathway, every stabilized circuit, every connection Aaron had restored. The systems hummed in resonance, not mechanical, but musical, like the craft itself was singing. Aaron's vision blurred with tears. This wasn't just technology responding to proper repair. This was consciousness recognizing consciousness, energy harmonizing with energy, love meeting love. You healed more than technology, the Gray said softly. Aaron knew. He felt it. Something inside him had realigned too, something that had been broken, or maybe just disconnected, for longer than he could remember. The spiral symbol carved into the metal beside the core blazed with intense light. The same symbol he'd noticed when he first entered the craft. Now he understood it. Not decoration, not alien writing. A map, showing how energy moves when consciousness creates. The spiral pattern of growth, evolution, expansion. The pattern of love expressing itself through form. The gray bowed its head in a gesture that felt profoundly human despite the being's otherworldly appearance. Respect, recognition, gratitude. You remembered who you are. Aaron pulled his hand back slowly. The crystal maintained its glow. Stable now. Complete. He looked at his palm. It tingled with residual energy. I'm not just an electrician, he heard himself say. No, you are consciousness using the form of an electrician, learning through limitation, growing through challenge, creating through intention. The words would have sounded crazy yesterday. Today they felt like the truest thing Aaron had ever heard. The light inside the craft seemed to celebrate the moment, pulsing in waves that felt like joy. Aaron breathed deeply. His chest felt light, unburdened. The weight he'd carried, the shame, the failure, the abandonment, gone, not suppressed, not ignored, not pushed down, released, transformed by understanding into something else, into fuel for growth instead of anchor dragging him down. His faith was returning, not the desperate faith of before, not the bargaining, begging, pleading faith that came from feeling separate from God. Living faith, quiet certainty, direct knowing, the kind of faith that didn't need proof because it came from experience, from feeling the connection, from being the connection. Aaron looked at the gray. The repair is complete, he said. Yes, came the response, inside and outside, as it was meant to be. The craft hummed with restored power, and Aaron stood in the golden light, feeling more whole than he'd ever felt, knowing that fixing this impossible craft had somehow fixed something in himself he didn't even know was broken. Or maybe he'd always known, and just needed someone, something, to show him it was possible to heal. The desert night waited beyond the hull, but Aaron was in no hurry to leave. He was exactly where he needed to be, exactly who he needed to be. Finally, the gray moved to the center of the chamber. The golden light softened, becoming almost liquid around them. Before I depart, I must show you one final thing. Aaron nodded, open to whatever came next. He'd crossed too many impossible thresholds tonight to resist now. The being raised both hands, and a vision materialized in the space between them. Jesus, walking among people in sunlit streets. But this vision felt different from the earlier ones, more intimate, more essential. Aaron watched Jesus stop beside a well, speak to a woman drawing water, not preaching, not performing, just being with her, seeing her, loving her without condition. And in that moment of being truly seen, truly loved, the woman transformed. Not physically, but Aaron could see it happen. Her energy field shifting, expanding, lightening. Jesus' words echoed through the vision. The kingdom of God is within you, not coming, not distant, not earned through ritual or belief. Within, now, always. Aaron felt the words land in his chest like seeds. God does not live in distant heaven, the gray said gently. God lives as the conscious field within every being, within every atom, within you. Aaron understood now, really understood, not intellectually, not theoretically. He felt it, the divine presence, not external, not watching from above, internal, right here, in his chest, in his breath, in the awareness behind his thoughts. God wasn't something separate he needed to reach. God was the awareness doing the reaching. True prayer is gratitude, not supplication, the gray continued. The vision shifted, Jesus with hands raised, but not begging, not asking, thanking, operating from certainty that what he intended was already done, already real, already manifest, and reality reorganizing itself to match that certainty. Not because he was special, because that's how consciousness works when fully aligned with its source. Images flowed showing healing through loving intention, transformation through compassionate presence, creation through coherent emotion. Aaron saw what he'd been doing wrong his whole life, praying from lack, from fear, from the assumption he was separate from what he sought. Please God, give me this, fix this, change this. Every prayer broadcasting separation, reinforcement that he didn't have, wasn't, couldn't, and reality responding, okay, you're right, You don't. But Jesus prayed differently. Thank you for this healing that is already done. Operating from union, not separation. From knowing, not hoping. And reality responding, okay, you're right. It is. You were never truly alone, the gray said. Aaron felt tears track down his face again. I was never alone. Even in the darkest months after Sarah left, even in the silent nights when he couldn't pray anymore, the divine field had been right there, in him, as him. He'd just closed himself off from feeling it. You are part of the source you seek, the being continued. Not separate, not distant. Part of, expression of, localized manifestation of infinite consciousness. The desert beyond the craft seemed to vibrate with the revelation. Aaron felt it through the hull, through his bones, through every cell, the whole world pulsing with the same alive presence. Nothing dead, nothing inert, nothing separate. All of it, desert, stars, craft, gray, Aaron, one field, one consciousness, one love experiencing itself through infinite forms. All life is called to awakening, the gray explained. Every being, on every world, in every moment. The call is constant, only the readiness to answer varies. The vision showed Jesus one more time, teaching by a lake. Crowds gathered, but he wasn't giving them something they lacked. He was showing them what they already were. Jesus showed the true nature of consciousness, that it creates, that it shapes reality through emotion and intention, that love is the fundamental organizing force, that each being contains infinite creative power. The words settled into Aaron like stones finding their place in a foundation. He accepted the truth without fear, without resistance, without the need to defend old beliefs that no longer served. His sadness, the grief he'd carried like a second skin, dissolved like shadow meeting sunlight. Here one moment, gone the next. Not through force, not through positive thinking, through seeing, through understanding, through remembering. Aaron recognized something he'd forgotten or maybe never known. God had never stopped speaking. He'd just stopped listening, stopped feeling, stopped being present enough to recognize the constant communication happening through synchronicity, intuition, the beauty of the desert, the kindness of strangers, the perfect arrival of this impossible craft on this impossible night. All of it had been God speaking. And now Aaron could hear again. The gray lowered its hands, the vision faded, but the truth remained, burning in Aaron's awareness like a star that couldn't be dimmed. Peace flooded his body, complete, total, undeniable. Not the peace of external circumstances aligning, the peace of internal recognition. I am not broken. I am not abandoned. I am not alone. I am consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing limitation, learning to remember its infinite nature. Aaron stood in the golden light of the alien craft and felt more connected to God than he'd ever felt in any church, because God wasn't in the building. God was in the being, in him, as him, always had been, just waiting for Aaron to come home. The craft began to vibrate, not unstable, not damaged, alive, restored, ready. Light pulsed through every system Aaron had repaired, golden and bright, like the vessel itself was breathing with renewed purpose. The gray moved toward the opening in the hull. Aaron followed, his chest tight with emotion he couldn't quite name. They stepped out into the desert clearing together, the circular marks in the sand, the scattered rocks, the infinite stars overhead. Aaron felt it rising in him, gratitude mixed with something that felt like grief. "You're leaving," he said. Not a question. "Yes, my work here is complete." The being turned to face him fully, those dark eyes reflecting the starlight. Aaron's throat constricted. "You helped me when I didn't even believe in myself anymore." "No," came the gentle correction. "You helped yourself. I only showed you what was already there, what you had forgotten." The gray stepped closer, reached out with one long, slender hand, and touched Aaron's chest, right over his heart. The contact sent warmth flooding through his entire body. Not heat, something deeper, like recognition, like blessing. "Now help others through love," the being said. "Not by preaching, not by converting, by being, by embodying what you have learned, by letting your vibrations speak what words cannot." Aaron nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The wind picked up suddenly. Desert dust swirled around the craft, catching the golden light, creating spirals of luminous particles in the air. Beautiful, otherworldly. Aaron stepped back, giving the vessel space. Silent tears tracked down his face. He wasn't sad exactly. Not happy either. Changed. That's what he was. Fundamentally, permanently changed. The craft began to rise. Slowly, gracefully. No sound except the subtle hum of energy moving through restored systems. The hull lifted from the sand, completely vertical now, suspended 3 feet above the ground. Then 6. Then 10. The spiral symbol Aaron had repaired blazed with intense light, like a signature, like a farewell, like a promise. You are blessed. You are seen. You are loved. That's what the light seemed to say. The gray stood visible through the opening, one hand raised in a gesture Aaron understood perfectly, despite never having seen it before. Peace, gratitude, recognition, and then the final message came. Not through the air, through the connection they'd built tonight, through the field of consciousness they both inhabited. Return to your heart, always, in every moment. That is where truth lives. That is where I am lives. That is where you will find everything you seek. Aaron raised his own hand, tears flowing freely now. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. The craft accelerated upward, still silent, still graceful, rising toward the stars like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there. The golden light intensified to brilliant white, and then, in a flash that turned night into day for one impossible second, the craft vanished. Not gradually, not fading. Gone. A white beam shooting straight up into the cosmos, disappearing into infinity. The silence that followed was absolute. No wind, no insects, no distant highway sounds. Just Aaron standing alone in a circular clearing in the New Mexico desert. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, full of presence, full of everything that had just happened. Aaron stood there, face tilted toward the stars, feeling his own vibration. Different now, lighter, stronger, more coherent, like he'd been tuned to a frequency he'd forgotten existed. His heart pulsed steady in his chest. The divine field, God, Source, the conscious universe, whatever name fit, pulsed in rhythm with it. No separation, no distance, just connection. The dark night that had felt so threatening when he first drove out here now felt like promise, like possibility, like the infinite potential of consciousness preparing to create something new. Aaron took a deep breath of cool desert air, felt it fill his lungs, felt it nourish his blood, felt it sustain the miracle of his existence. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm connected. For the first time in months, maybe ever, that felt like enough. More than enough. Extraordinary. He stayed in the clearing for another hour, not because he was waiting for the craft to return, because he wasn't ready to leave the sacred space yet, the place where he'd died to his old understanding and been reborn into truth. When he finally walked back to his truck, the stars watched, the desert held him, and God, present in every grain of sand, every breath of wind, every beat of his transformed heart, smiled. 6 months later, Aaron drove the same highway where it all began, Highway 180, empty desert, infinite sky. But everything was different now. He was different. His morning had started like it always did these days, with gratitude. Not the forced, desperate gratitude he'd tried before. Not positive thinking plastered over wounds. Real gratitude. Felt gratitude. The kind that made his chest warm and his heart field expand. Thank you for this breath, this sunrise, this chance to live consciously today. Simple, direct, true. His prayers had transformed completely. No more begging, no more bargaining, no more desperate pleas for God to fix his broken life, because he understood now. His life had never been broken, just his perception of it. Aaron pulled over at a ranch house to check their electrical panel, the work he'd been hired to do. But he approached it differently now, with presence, with care, with the understanding that his intention mattered as much as his technical skill. He worked with a lightness he'd never felt before, moving through the repair with focus and, even surprisingly, joy. The rancher noticed. "You seem different," the old man said. "Happier, maybe." Aaron smiled. "Yeah, I guess I am." He didn't explain, didn't try to convince, just let his vibrations speak. That evening, Aaron did something he'd been avoiding for months. He called Sarah, not to beg her back, not to rehash old wounds, to forgive, in silence, with compassion. She answered cautiously, "Aaron, hey, I wanted to tell you something." "Okay, I forgive you for leaving, for all of it. And I'm sorry for the ways I wasn't present, the ways I closed off. You deserved better." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Thank you. That means a lot." They talked for 20 minutes. Really talked. Without blame, without the old patterns. When he hung up, Aaron felt something release, the last thread of resentment dissolving like morning mist. Forgiveness is liberation. The gray had been right. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or condoning. It meant releasing, letting go of the energetic weight so he could move freely again. And now he was free. He'd reconnected with God, not the distant deity of his childhood, not the judgmental force he'd feared. The living presence within him, the conscious field that animated every cell, every thought, every moment. God as isness, as the awareness behind awareness, as love experiencing itself through Aaron's eyes. Helping others became his active form of prayer. Not preaching, not evangelizing, just being helpful, being kind, being present, fixing an elderly woman's wiring for free, listening to a neighbor's troubles without offering advice, just witnessing, leaving anonymous groceries for the family down the road struggling with medical bills. Small acts, nothing dramatic, but Aaron felt them creating ripples, felt the coherence spreading, and synchronicities began appearing in his life. Small at first, perfect timing, unexpected opportunities, people showing up exactly when needed. Then larger, a job offer that felt divinely orchestrated, a chance encounter that led to deep friendship, doors opening where walls had stood. Aaron didn't call them miracles, called them alignment. When you vibrate coherently, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize with love, reality reorganizes around you, not as supernatural intervention, as natural law. He saw the world differently now, not as dead matter populated by isolated beings, as a field of light, conscious, evolving, learning, every person a localized expression of infinite awareness, every interaction an opportunity for that awareness to recognize itself. Aaron felt Jesus' presence, not as external savior, as internal guide, the part of him that knew, that loved without condition, that operated from certainty instead of fear. What would Jesus do? Wasn't about following rules. It was about asking, how would consciousness fully aligned with love respond? And then doing that. The love he'd thought was just emotion, he now experienced as force, as vibration, as the organizing principle that literally shaped his reality. When he sustained love, his life reflected it back. When he fell into fear, that appeared too, not as punishment, as feedback. The clearing in the desert had become an altar in his memory. He drove past it sometimes, never stopped, didn't need to. The sacred space lived inside him now. The gray's revelation echoed constantly, not as words, but as lived truth. Return to your heart. God is within. You create through emotion and intention. Love is the answer, always. Simple truths that changed everything. Aaron understood now what he'd never understood before. He'd never been abandoned. God had been speaking constantly, through beauty, through synchronicity, through the still small voice of intuition. Aaron had just been too closed, too fearful, too identified with his suffering to hear. But he heard now, loud and clear. His soul had awakened to love, to its own divine nature, to the truth that separation was illusion and connection was the only reality. And in the silence of his renewed heart, driving through the desert under infinite stars, Aaron finally understood the message he'd been seeking his whole life. God was never distant. We moved away from the light. And now, one choice at a time, one breath at a time, one loving act at a time, we're finding our way home. Aaron smiled, gratitude filling his chest. The desert stretched endlessly before him, and he drove forward into his new life, awake, connected, home.